You're listening to The Celtic Show on WRFG. And first of all, we are in the midst of our pledge drive, and so the phone number here is 404-523-8989. But as promised, we have two representatives from the Arís theater troupe. Loyal listeners may recall a few weeks back when we had Robert Shaw Smith here speaking about Philadelphia, Here I Come. And no sooner had the curtain gone down on that production, but they got started on the next production, which is called Trust Byron. And we've got Winslow here, so why don't you introduce yourself and who else is here in the studio, and tell us just a little bit more about the setup for this particular production coming up.
Hi, my name is Winslow Thomas. I am a native Atlantan, born and raised here. And Trust Byron is an American premiere. In this instance, we at Arís Theater are bringing this to you for the first time, obviously. And next to me is the playwright and original performer of the show, George Costigan. We are more than happy to be producing this here and feel very honored to be the theater that is bringing Byron back to Atlanta, as it were.
Great. Well, we've got some information in terms of the dates of the show. The show is running November 13th through the 23rd. It's at a television studio in the Midtown area, and more information on that can be found at the website aristheatre.org, and I will spell that, ARIStheatre.org. And we also have, at the end of the discussion here, if you like what you hear, which we think you will, and you want to both support Arís Theater and see the Trust Byron performance, as well as supporting the Celtic Show on WRFG, for a pledge of $50 or more, you will get 2 tickets to see a performance of Trust Byron. So we appreciate the folks at Arís putting those forward to support the good work here going on at WRFG. And like I said to Rob the other day, we're all in this together to promote the Irish culture and the Irish arts and the Celtic arts. And that's a reminder that this is the Celtic Show, not just the Irish show. So we cut across a lot of different genres there. And George, tell the listeners a little bit behind what got in your head to write the play.
Byron got inside my head, and he's a Scot. I don't think he ever went to Ireland. I'm an actor, and somebody asked me to play him, and I knew nothing whatsoever about him. So, like a good boy, I went off to do some research to find out something about him, and the first thing I found out was that there are more books written about Byron than anybody else in the history of English literature. There are more books written about Shakespeare, but you can cover Shakespeare on a piece of paper. The books written about Byron are about Byron, as opposed to books about his work. The first one I got was by Frederick Raphael, and I read it, and my jaw just dropped, because the question I had was, why has nobody told me this story? This is a British artist, famous, but nobody's told me the story. Well, you don't have to read too far to find out the reason why nobody's told you the story, because it's too rude. That's why he's not taught in school. And it's odd, because I was thinking today that you might ask me this. My wife and I, who's directing the show, went to watch Gandhi, the film Gandhi, Richard Attenborough's film, and we came out and asked ourselves the same question. Why has nobody told us this story? That one's even easier because the British lost, so we don't talk about those kind of things. But Byron just absolutely fascinated me. I've never come across a character like that. And the other draw for me was that he made me laugh. He's witty.
Now, how long of a process was it to write the play?
Well, ages really, because you just you know, there are, like I said, there are millions of books, so you read as many as you think you need, and then. I knew that I wanted to write a play, because that's my trade. I'm a theatre person, so I wanted to put him on. And you begin by trying out a literal thing or some sort of narrative, and then I phoned Willie Russell, who wrote Shirley Valentine, who's a friend of mine, and I said, "How did you write Shirley Valentine?" And he said, "I knew Shirley's voice, and I knew where she was going. I just didn't know the journey, so I let her take me on that journey." So then I start to write, and I realise that I've read so much that I have got Byron's voice. And of course I know where it's going, because I know the story. It's just a question of finding the form in which to tell it. And the two things that came together was that I have a kind of another obsession. Obviously, Byron became an obsession, but another one is Lenny Bruce. And I'm intrigued by the fact that, to my taste, nobody's really pushed the form of stand-up comedy on from Lenny. So I was happy to write this as a piece of stand-up comedy, because the man makes me laugh, and also, like Lenny, he's concerned with morals and mores, and he has also got a life's experience to draw from, and a narrative that I know you don't know.
Now, you were the original actor in the play as well?
Only because Kieran Hines did a workshop for me, and when he finished the workshop, he performed the whole thing, and it was about 40 minutes too long. So I was horrified. So I went home, cut it, and then thought, I can't send another actor out to see whether I've got this right. I'm going to have to do this myself, even though I was much too old to do it. And once I'd done it, I kind of got a bit addicted to it. Until I did it in Bristol one night, and my son said to me, he came to see it, and he went, "It's really good, Dad, but it'd be fascinating to see someone of the right age play it."
Yes. And did you find that once you were actually acting it, that you made some further revisions, or that there were further things that you changed
things
about?
all the time. You know, I'm still refining things as I hear another actor do it. You just things you go.
And now you and Julia have been in town for a while and working on the production. And tell us a little bit about your impressions. Is this your first trip to Atlanta, or has?
Yeah, definitely my first. It's just Jules' first trip to America. I've been to California and Baltimore before. Atlanta's extraordinary. I've never been in a city with so many trees. I've never been in a city as big as this, as wide as this. The driving in is insane. And that's all I can tell you, really. All we've done is go from where we're staying, which is up in, where is it?
Tucker.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's Doraville.
Pardon me, Doraville.
They were quite specific.
Sorry,
about
John.
it.
Sorry,
I'm
Holly.
into the rehearsal studios at GPB. That's as far as I've got with it so far.
So, Winslow, before we go to a break with some music, you're sort of chomping at the bit here. So, tell us a little bit about kind of the logistics of getting everybody in town, and what was behind Arish's decision to bring this to Atlanta in such a unique way.
Well, the show itself actually, at least in my hands, kind of predated the theater. One of our other founders, Joanna Daniel, who is a dear friend of George and Jules and actually worked with George decades ago. They grew up working in British theater together. Tossed me the script just to read about 3 years ago, and I was staggered by it. I fell in love with it. I thought it was audacious. It reminded me of so many things that I think are so very important to say. Once again, that they're a kind of a detestation of cant. It reminded me about the honesty that theater can bring to people's lives and that can remind them of. And as years went on, Arís came into being. We kind of grew out of various different urges in the Atlanta theater community, and we put it to a vote last year that we decided, well, would this be a show that we want to produce? And the vote amongst the founders came up and said, yes, we do. So the inception of my terror began. It is.
You have no one to blame.
Staggering. It is a staggering job to take on, and George is absolutely right. I've got nobody to blame but myself. But that being said, I couldn't have asked for more generous, more loving, more gracious, and more informed and expert director and playwright than Julia and George. And I and Arís are so very, very lucky to have them in our corner. And so we're going to bring Byron to Atlanta, and you guys should watch out, and you should come see it.
Okay. And once again, those dates are November 13th through the 23rd, and the additional information is available at arishtheatre.org, www.aristheatre.org. and all the information is there. We're going to take a brief break for some music, and we'll be back to talk to Winslow a little bit more about the challenges of a one-man production. I'll talk a little bit about the initial challenge for having all eyes are on you all the time.
Well, succinctly put, it's a 43-page long monologue with a break in the middle. If anybody has ever done a monologue, you have, 3-5 minutes, something like that. Well, folks, this goes on and on and on. But let me tell you also, in response to the ease, not necessarily ease, but the ease with which the material feeds itself. It's a wonderful story. It is an amazing story. It is a story that I think it's a tragedy more American audiences don't know, because I've mentioned it and told people about it for a year and a half now. And 50% of the time you have people blink and go, who? And Byron is one of the underpinnings of literature. English literature, as we know it, at least in modern America. I have the feeling that people with more classical education are probably taught Byron, or at least aspects of him. But as George mentioned, he was very rude. And for the last 8 years of his life, he was exiled from England for a particular series of crimes. Not necessarily crimes, but he was accused of things. But as an actor, you find yourself growing very hungry for more, because the story and the writing feed you and feed an eagerness and a joy in you to bring this out. And the character himself is stunning. He is full of laughter. He's full of life. He's full of the full sweep of humanity. And
now,
as an actor, it's a joy to do that.
Now, George, are there any additional challenges when you go to write a play with just the one voice?
No. It's a whole lot easier. Don't have to bother about bringing anybody on, or just let him ramble. And then, once you've written everything you want him to say, then obviously, like the first time I did it, I was just telling Winslow, Kieran Hines did it, and it was too long. So, you just cut it down to where you think it should be. The other thing that Winslow's not mentioned, and neither did I, is that we're actually talking about a man who was the most famous person on the planet.
Oh yeah, in no stretch of the imagination at all.
This is one of the angles I could have taken as a writer is this is the first rock star. This is a man who sold 12,000 copies of a poem, which definitely relates to an album, in one morning from one shop.
Wow.
People were throwing them out the window.
No tweets, no adverts, no pledging, no radio, no nothing.
Right.
Just fame. So.
And he lived only to be 36 years old. I mean, even in the mores of 1824, he died a comparatively young man. But the physician who did the autopsy on his body upon opening his skull opined that surely this is the brain of a 75-year-old.
Wow.
He said I was 36, I only looked and felt 75.
What are some of your personal preparations as you approach, from a distance, obviously just getting familiar with the script, but then what are some of your day of performance preparations leading up to coming out and doing something this challenging?
Well, something this challenging pretty much expands my my prep for the day of. But I'm imagining I'll follow my usual regime. You try to get enough rest. You get to the theater early enough to stretch yourself out. You make sure that your body and your voice are both warm. And if there are portions of the show that you feel like you run them and work them and make sure that they're up to performance caliber so that they come to you immediately when you're in the midst of things. But, as I said, George has written such an amazing script that it actually, one event leads to the other. It takes you along by the hand. So in that sense, it's considerably easier than doing a non-linear piece. But it's a long 43-page monologue.
Okay.
So,
great. Well, any parting thoughts, George, before we end the interview here, about anything in particular that people should look for or expect from the production, or what should they look
I
for,
used to
perhaps?
say, because I've done this sort of thing interview, that if you've got any curiosity about human nature, about human beings, about anything, come out. Spend an evening with somebody who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt. If you'd rather stop at home and watch The X Factor, do.
And Winslow, how about any parting thoughts from you in terms of anything more that you'd like to add?
Yeah, please come out and see it, folks. It is an evening that you will never forget.
That's
By the way, Arís, and the name of our theater in Gaelic means again. You could use it the way you would encore. So if you like the show, at the end of the show, stand up, applaud, and yell out Arís at the top of your lungs. We will appreciate it.
We've been visiting with George Costigan and Winslow Thomas of the Arís Theater Troupe and Arís Theater Company about the play Trust Byron, which is here in Atlanta in less than 2 weeks' time, November 13th through the 23rd. It is being performed in the Midtown area, and more information may be found at www.aristheatre.org. That's ARISTHEATRE.org. Thank you both so much for joining us
Cheers,
on the
Mr.
Celtic
Thanks,
Show.
John.
Best of luck in these final weeks of preparation. And I myself am looking forward to both doing some more research on Byron and seeing the production.
Cool.
Thanks so much. Take care.